What was the biggest military blunder of all time? Right at the end of W2's phony war period, there was a major, miles-long traffic jam of German armor and artillery that essentially ran from the Ardennes forest back to the German border. French air reconnaissance spotted the traffic jam, but their superiors didn't believe the intel and chose to completely ignore it. France basically blew a golden opportunity to neutralize enough German armor that nobody would have ever heard the term blitzkrieg. France fell roughly 2 weeks later. Adolf Hitler's decision to invade the Soviet Union during World War II, Operation Barbarossa, launched in June 1941, proved disastrous for Nazi Germany despite initial gains. The invasion stretched German forces thin across vast territories, underestimated Soviet resilience, and ultimately led to the near destruction of the German army in the brutal Russian winter. The failure of Operation Barbarossa significantly contributed to the eventual defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II. In a thread similar to this, in which he Khwarezmi an emperor slaughtered an emissary of an neighboring state who was sent to ask for the neighbor's trade caravans to be protected from a wayward governor, the emperor refused to hear the emissary and had him executed. The emissary was Genghis Khan's, who promptly erased the entire Khwarezmian empire from the face of the earth in retaliation. I'll keep looking for the original reply. It's quality. The British battle cruiser design philosophy. Like 6,000 lives were lost to the flawed concept of battleship guns but weaker armor versus the Germans' heavy armor but weaker guns which could still penetrate the armor of British battle cruisers. Multiple ships and thousands of men, each blown apart in an instant. I challenge anyone to find a single naval design blunder that has killed more people than the British battle cruiser design concept. The year was 2024. I remember it like it was yesterday. The USA had decided to stop supporting Ukraine in the war against Russia in the mistaken belief that appeasement to a dictator works. Humanity, after all, has not really learnt from its own history. I write this from the ruins of a city once known as the last of my power bricks about to end. If anyone can still read this, go back to 2024. Stop Putin at all costs. Emperor Nicephorus deciding to rest in the Verbitzer Pass after plundering Pliska. His silly decision to set up camp in the middle of the mountain allowed Krum to not only ambush him and his army, but to also capture him. As punishment for sacking his capital, Krum beheaded Nicephorus and turned his skull into a wine goblet. This defeat deterred the Byzantine Empire from trying to cross the Balkan Mountains for nearly 2 centuries. Hitler refusing to believe the D-Day invasion was going to be at Normandy, and insisting it was, and reinforcing instead Calais. Well, it was bad for him, and probably drug-induced psychosis that made him falsely believe that, but it's actually good that he did. By the time he came to his senses it was too late. The Allies were too far in deep to be pushed at. The Austro-Hungarian Empire declaring war on Serbia in 1914 after the assassination of their Crown Prince, Archduke Ferdinand. The British upholding a treaty with the French, a treaty famously described as a scrap of paper, and that's what caused all the death and destruction. But really, we have to go back to the source. Not the biggest, but the American bombers who, due to a navigational error, bombed the shit out of Prague instead of Dresden on the 14th of February 1945. 700 dead civilians and 1,200 injured, plus extensive damage to the old part of Prague. The classic blunders, the most famous of which is never get involved in a land war in Asia. But only slightly less well known is this: never go against a Sicilian when death is on the line. Declaration of war on the Soviet Union. Point 2. Japan's attack on the US. 3. Hitler's declaration of war on the US after Japan attacked the US. 4. Everyone's actions at the start of WWI. The battle at Horns of Hattin. King of Jerusalem Guy de Lusignan lost to Saladin. It was the battle that started the decline of Al-Prima and the fall of Jerusalem. It about biggest, but here's one. The US spending $28 million on green camouflage for the Afghan National Army. For those who don't know, Afghanistan is 98 desert. Japan attacking the US, and botched the raid by striking when the carriers were not in Pearl Harbor, then Germany declaring war on the US earlier than necessary. Battle of Savo Island. Lack of communication made the US Navy get annihilated by the Japanese. Had they reached the carriers, it would have been game over. Haiti is terrible because the Haitians paid the French to leave or stop colonialism. Meanwhile, USA embargoed the island, and the Haitians had another war. The Cong Tet Offensive in 1968, although initially successful, the offensive marked a turning point in American public opinion against the Vietnam War. Anyone know any Aztec history and could comment a fact about a war they had? I'm interested in knowing something about this side of world. 3-day military operation taking 731 days. Losing 10 generals. Losing half your navy to a country without a navy. Losing to AWACS, Joe Biden Afghanistan campaign, running from flip-flop troglodytes, and leaving billions worth of kit to the army of jihadists. Easily the Battle of Tsushima sailed the entire Russian navy around the globe to be annihilated in a little over 24 hours. Somewhat stereotypical answer. At literally any time anyone invades Russia in the wintertime or messes with America's boats, I'd say it's a tie between Napoleon and the Third Reich trying to take over Moscow, and thinking it'd be a walk in the park. The current invasion of Ukraine, which will be followed by either W3 or the dissolution of Russia. Trevlians proposing that Olga of Kiev marry their leader, who had just ordered the death of her husband Igor. All of the battles of the Isonzo. Hitler not allowing a request to retreat from Stalingrad prior to it being surrounded. Hitler's Operation Barbarossa. He could have actually won if it weren't for this lmao. Russia's invasion of Ukraine. They've been proven to be frauds as a superpower, trying to fight a war and then nation build. Go in, handle business, and leave. Now it has to be Soviet Union in Afghanistan. Help bankrupt them. Never go up against a Sicilian when death is on the line. Invading Russia in winter. Just ask Napoleon and Hitler.